The Liberals made a lot of promises on the campaign trail, from everything to daycare to housing to climate. Which is at the top of the agenda when MPs return in 2 weeks? And what kinds of talks are really happening with opposition parties? Mark Holland is the government House Leader. He's in Ottawa. Mr. Holland, thank you so much for speaking with us today. Can you clear something up for us? Are there formal talks happening with the NDP to form a coalition?
Look, what's happening, Katie, of course, the Prime Minister has talked with all of the leaders, and I am, of course, talking to my counterparts in the other party. We're still waiting for the Conservatives to name who their House Leader is going to be, but talking to their immediate past House Leader and looking for common ground, ways that we can work together. We have an extremely aggressive parliamentary agenda, and we need folks to work with. So that's been the focus of our conversations. That's what we're focused on right now, is the impending parliamentary calendar.
So just to go back to sort of nail it down specifically here, are there formal talks to specifically form a coalition with the NDP?
Look, no, I think the answer to the question is we are focused on this period that's coming up. We have to deal with the extension of COVID measures to make sure that we continue to be there for Canadians. We have to be able to protect healthcare workers in their workspaces to make sure that they're not menaced in doing the extremely important work that they're doing right now. We have to deal with paid sick leave. We have to deal with conversion therapy. So, our focus is looking at where we have common ground to work on with other parties and having discussions with all of the other parties to make sure that we can secure the support that Canadians expect us to find to get their agenda done.
So I know you mentioned you're waiting for the Conservatives to appoint their House Leader, but you are having conversations with all parties as it is a minority government. So that's sort of, is this just par for the course when it comes to a minority government? These are the conversations you're having?
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. When I began in this role, you start from a fresh place to say that we're going to attempt to work together and really listen to the spirit of the election. I think Canadians made it very clear they wanted us to collaborate and work together, and they had some very specific priorities: ending the pandemic, climate change, dealing with affordability and housing. So there are a number of areas where folks are expecting that collaboration, and that's exactly what I'm trying to do, to build the bridges to make sure that we can get that done.
And just, this is the last time I'll ask, but formal talks for a coalition with the NDP, the answer is no, that's not happening.
Well, I think, look, there's going to be lots of speculation about, who's doing what with whom. But my preoccupation at this point in time is for the parliamentary session that's upcoming. And we only have a couple of weeks before that starts. And we have a lot of incredibly important priorities to focus on. So, and that is really going to depend upon all parties collaborating. So we're going to need the cooperation of each of the parties because in a minority government, it's not just the government that has a responsibility for deliverance of the agenda. It's the opposition party as well. They have to be able to explain how they're making sure that this is a productive session of Parliament. And we're going to hold them to account to that and have high expectations of their willingness to work with us.
But that's not a no to that answer. If there are formal talks going on, that's not a no.
Well, look, I understand that there's a desire to look into the tea leaves and see what the future may hold. I'm just not there. I right now have a responsibility to work on behalf of Canadians to deliver over the next 6 to 7 weeks on some incredibly important priorities. That's exactly what I'm having discussions on. What I'm going to have discussions on after that is, I'm not clairvoyant, so I can't know. We'll have to let the world unfold afterwards.
Are you open to a formal coalition with the NDP?
Well, I think that at this point in time, my interest is to have conversations with each of the parties around what our shared priorities are, and then to work from there to determine what's the best way to legislatively achieve that. And for us to be able to make very clear what we expect to achieve and who we expect to achieve it with once we have those dancing partners. But this is early days. I think that, the Prime Minister has had some very productive talks with the opposition opposition leaders. I've had some very good early conversations with my counterparts, and those conversations are all nascent. And it would be premature on any of those conversations to speculate about their trajectory at this point.
Parliament returns on November 22nd. And then once Parliament does return, you have a short window before the holiday break. What specifically do you hope to achieve in that short window before the new year?
Well, I think one of the things we're going to have to come to terms with is extending the hybrid provisions for Parliament so that we have a structure through which to function. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. We unfortunately don't know how many Conservative MPs are unvaccinated, so we're going to have to make sure that we have a forum for them to be able to participate in parliamentary debate. And we're going to have to reinforce the decision that was made at Boy around mandatory vaccinations. We've got to get right to work, and these discussions are already ongoing about how we can extend the COVID measures that are there to make sure that we're there for Canadians as many people continue to struggle as this pandemic continues to impact their ability to have a livelihood. As well, as I referenced earlier, we have a really important duty to make sure that healthcare workers are safe and secure in their work and that they're able to get to their workplace. I think we have a lot of common ground on the issue of banning conversion therapy. I think we have a lot of common ground on paid sick leave. So there's a lot, right in that opening period of time, there's an enormous amount of work to get done. And I think that what we've been able to demonstrate during the COVID period is that we can be equal to the hour as a parliament, that we can find a way to quickly get to what needs to be done.
So the election was nearly 2 months ago. Today was your first Liberal caucus meeting. What took so long?
Well, I think, there's, as I mentioned, when you're cooperating, you're collaborating, you're talking about what kind of parliament you want to have, it's extremely important to collaborate and take the time to have those conversations. And that's been an extremely fruitful process within our own caucus and with other parties. And, if we're going to arrive on the 22nd with a parliament that is ready to get working, we need to have done the preparatory work. So I think that's incredibly important. And today's caucus meeting was incredibly fruitful, wonderful. We continue to operate in a hybrid fashion, but wonderful to see so many colleagues in person. I haven't been able to do that in a very long period of time. And so those conversations were very positive, and both now in the formalized part of the caucus meeting, but obviously in all of the conversations that have been taking place to this point.
I've personally had conversations with Liberals, and there is a sense of frustration, particularly among some backbenchers, about how long it took for this meeting to happen, and B, there seems to be a sense that from their perspective, that there isn't necessarily an understanding from party leadership about just how difficult the election campaign was and the blowback they got from voters at the door. Did you hear about that, and what are you going to do about frustration from some backbenchers?
Well, I think that this is my seventh federal election. This is my fifth minority government. I think having a debate on how we can collaborate, how we can work better together, what are the ways that we can ensure that every element of our team is being used to its maximum efficiency, is an extremely important conversation. And it is my goal to make sure that that every ounce of heft is lifted to the task of meeting the agenda that Canadians expect us to deliver on. We are in, it's cliche to say, but really unprecedented times. And I think that because of those times, because we're dealing with, the existential threat of climate change, we're dealing with coming out of a global pandemic, people have an expectation that we're going to really lift ourselves to the hour. And so it's my job to pull all of those different elements together to make sure that everybody is included in the legislative agenda in a way that utilizes their talents and abilities to the greatest extent possible. And I think we had a great conversation about that today.
Was any explanation given to MPs at all about why Mark Garneau, Jim Carr, and Bardish Chagger were dropped from cabinet?
The Prime Minister on what was it, about a few weeks ago, created a new cabinet. I think that there's enormous opportunity for all members of Parliament to participate in a variety of different ways. And there's a discussion about how everybody can step up to the plate and be helpful. And as we all know, we play different roles at different points in time. I myself have been a whip, a parliamentary secretary, opposition critic, a vice chair of a committee, and every single role that we play in Parliament is vitally important to its function. And so, I think there is an incredible team of individuals who, in some named posts and some soon to be named posts, and in ways that are public and obvious and ways that are behind the scenes and maybe not so evident, play an absolutely essential role in delivering the agenda we hope to bring forward for Canadians.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Holland, for your time today.
Thank you. Wonderful to talk.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.